friends, welcome to this foreign exchange class series 2. That this class is only on foreign exchange, that is with regard to the cross-border transactions in foreign currency. We are not discussing anything with regard to the domestic transactions. Now in the first part we will discuss and explain what is current account, what is current account deficit, and how it impacts the company, it impacts the country, it impacts the people. In the second part, we will discuss the composition in the current account, how current account is formed, and what are the major causes of current account deficit. Not only on the part of India, but almost all emerging economies are facing the same problem. So it is an international issue. The current account deficit is an international issue. And the third part will discuss about the composition of the capital account and how surplus in capital account can help to reduce the current account deficit of the country and to support the economy, impacts the industry. Friends, those who are from accounting background, they know that two annual statements are very important for the company. One is profit and loss account, another is balance sheet. In the profit and loss account, what we mention, it is basically revenue income and revenue expenditure. Now you visualize the profit and loss account and think the country also maintains a profit and loss account in foreign exchange, but it is not called profit and loss account. It is called current account. In other words, in the country's current account, there will be exports, that is foreign exchange earning, and on the other side you will find remittances on account of imports. The exports are of two types. One, merchandise exports, that is goods, another could be services like IT services. These are our foreign exchange earnings in current account. And what are the foreign exchange outgo? That is remittances on account of goods, remittances on account of services. If we see that the exports is more than the import, then there will be a current account surplus. But if we find that our export remittances, both goods and services, are lower than the import remittances, then there will be a current account deficit, which is the case for India. The difference is called what? The difference is called trade deficit. So this trade deficit is the major cause for the current account deficit of a country. In case of India, our imports are more than the exports. On a monthly basis, I am telling you, averagely it will be around $15 billion more. That means if we have to have trade deficit nil, we need to have around $15 billion per month additional exports, which is not there. And that is the basic reason for trade deficit. And trade deficit actually plays a role in current account deficit. Because in the current account, other than exports and imports, some other items also appear. That I will discuss in the second part of my deliberations. So, what are the major reasons for the current account deficit? The answer is trade deficit. Trade deficit to the extent of around $15 billion per month. Now, you can ask me why there is a trade deficit. Why our exports are lower than the import? In reply, I will say there are three reasons. One is higher cost of crude. When the country's budget for 22-23 was prepared, it was prepared based on $65 to $70 per barrel. This price increased to $130 per barrel few months back, and today it is settling in the areas of $85 to $87, still very high. It is not that because of our high consumption, it is because of inflated price of petroleum oil. This is the number one reason. Number two, we have a very high amount of gold import. Number three, we have a very high amount of edible oil import. You will be surprised to know that 56% of the edible oil is imported from Malaysia, Indonesia, and also Ukraine. These are the major reasons. It is not because our consumption has increased. Our consumptions by and large same, but because of the price hike followed by high inflation, the import cost has been inflated, and that is the basic reason for which we have such a high amount of trade deficit. And trade deficit is basically forcing to have the current account deficit of the country. Friends, I have explained you, if there is a current account deficit, there could be its impact in the economy. So therefore, we have to make sure that the current account deficit is reduced to minimum, and even if there is any current account deficit, that could be supported by the capital account surplus. In this class, we will try to explain further what are the items appear in the current account. That means when you calculate the surplus or deficit in current account, what are the items you will consider? And for this purpose, we will take the help of the graphics. Please see that in the current account, receipt column, major 5 items appear. In other words, you can say these are the 5 major sources of foreign exchange of the country. Not only for India, but all over the world. What are the 5 items? As I have explained while explaining what is trade deficit, the export proceeds from merchandise goods. That is the major foreign exchange earning. Second, export of services. In case of India, we export around $200 billion of services. And of course, IT service is one of the major items in service segment. Then, interest on loan. Country also gives loan to other countries. So if there is any interest provisions, it is also a foreign exchange earning of the country. And most importantly, and please note, that India's one of the major areas of foreign exchange earning is NRI remittances. That is the remittances that are made to the parents, dependents by the NRIs from outside India. And do you know what is that amount? The amount is $90 billion per annum. And what is the fifth major item? That is dividend received on foreign investments. Now you can ask me a question. Government does not invest in company outside India. But many Indian companies, they have their subsidiaries outside India. Those subsidiaries declare dividend and that is remitted. Ultimately, all foreign exchange is credited to the country's reserve. So, although the money in Indian rupee is going to the receiving company or the, you can say, investor company, but foreign currency is coming in the hands of the government. According to my understanding, these are the major 5 heads under which every country gets the foreign exchange earnings. I repeat, export proceeds from merchandise goods, export proceeds from services, interest received on foreign loan, NRI remittances to India, and dividend received on foreign investments. These are the 5 incoming foreign exchange details. So when you calculate the current account deficit or surplus, you consider these 5 items in one side of the income, and in the other side you consider another 5 items. That is remittances, that is foreign exchange outgo. First, I have already explained import of merchandise goods, import remittances of services. Our country also consume many imported services like IT services, the software, Microsoft Word, you are paying in the form of Indian rupee, but ultimately money is transferred to the original inventor, that is Microsoft. So, remittances on account of import of services, technology which you are buying and setting up an industry by bringing foreign technology, the royalty which you pay, that is also remittances, and it will come under remittances on account of services. Remittances for education, living expenses of dependent children. Our children are studying abroad, parents are remitting money, or they are taking loan and the money is remitted in the form of foreign currency, that is also expenditure. Expenses for medical treatment, holiday, traveling, business traveling, you want dollar, you want pound, you want euro, these are all foreign exchange outgo. So I have explained you 5 important headings of foreign exchange earning. I have also discussed 5 important headings under which foreign exchange outgoes are there. The difference between these two is known as current account deficit. That means trade deficit is a part of the current account deficit. If you have a trade deficit, obviously it will be impacted in the current account deficit. India has a huge trade deficit, as I have already explained you. And India is expecting a current account deficit of 105 billion in 22-23. That means during 12 months of 22-23, the country is expecting a current account deficit of $105 billion, which is approximately 3% of the country's GDP. What is the country's GDP? Approximately $3,500 billion. In short, $3.5 trillion. You calculate 3% of that, it will come 105 billion. And that is the expected current account deficit. So mind that trade deficit is a part of the current account deficit. Now your question could be, what happens if there is a current account deficit? Like India. Obviously, you have to support from your capital account surplus. And capital account surplus and current account surplus makes the country's foreign exchange. Now, if we have a current account deficit of $105 billion, then we have to use our foreign exchange reserve of the country. So as a result, foreign exchange reserve will come down. Now in a country where there is no foreign exchange reserve and you have a current account deficit, what will happen? That country will be considered as default country like Sri Lanka, and many other countries are following that same path because they have neither current account surplus nor capital account surplus. But so far India is concerned, we have a current account deficit, but we have a capital account surplus, that is foreign exchange reserve, to the extent of today $550 billion. So long this reserve is there, no problem. But the moment your reserve is reduced or depleted fully, then there will be a problem. What is the problem? The country will be considered as default. What will be its impact on you and me and other industries? The interest rate will increase significantly. FII will withdraw their entire money because they know the country does not have a foreign exchange. So let us try to sell the security and try to quickly take out the money from the country. So it will have a series of problems. The foreign loan, the bilateral loan will be very costly. Who will invest the money in the country when they know the country is a default? Default means they are unable to meet the international commitment. Payments against import is an international commitment. You have issued an ALC, but if the country does not have foreign exchange reserve, how they will import medicines? How they will get a new loan? Even if they get a new loan, the interest rate will be very, very high because the country is a default country. And that is the reason we thought we will explain this, that if you have a current account deficit, then you have to have a matching capital account surplus, which is there in case of India. We have around $535 billion, 550 has been reduced to 545, but it is equivalent to 9 months import commitments, which is considered to be reasonable. But those countries who do not have sufficient foreign exchange reserve, but they have a current account deficit, for them it is a nightmare. So friends, now we'll try to understand what is capital account. As I have explained, the way assets and liabilities are shown in the company's balance sheet, in the country's balance sheet, it appears as capital account transactions. That means it will have two sides. One is capital receipts and capital payments. If you have capital receipts more than the capital payments, then you have a capital account surplus, which is the case for India. Now, you will certainly try to know what are the items appearing in capital account under receipts, that is inflow of foreign exchange into the country. Number one is FDI, foreign direct investments. It comes to the country. Whenever any foreign currency comes to the country, its equivalent amount goes to the credit of the company, but currency comes to the kitty of the government. So when FDI comes, it comes in the form of foreign currency and it is credited to the country's foreign exchange reserve, or you can say capital account. India gets huge amount of FDI. That is its inherent strength. So I am talking about the capital receipts. Next, FII investment. Foreign institutional investors, they are putting money in the country. It is a liability, but it is a foreign exchange inflow. Why it is a liability? Because this FII may sell the investments at any day and they will take back the money to their own country. So is the case of FDI. The difference between FDI and FII invests in money market, secondary market, mostly. But FDI comes directly to the industry. But both are in the form of liability to the country, which you must understand. Then one major area of country's capital receipt is external commercial borrowing, ECB. Major Indian companies, they take loan under ECB from the foreign investors at a concessional interest rate, say LIBOR plus 50 basis points, like that. They get loan from their investors itself, from the collaborators itself. I have handled many such cases. The money comes to the country in the form of external commercial borrowing. Equivalent amount goes to the credit of the company in Indian rupee, but foreign currency comes to the country. So I have told you three important areas of capital receipt. One, foreign direct investments. Two, FII investments. These are the two important areas. Third is external commercial borrowing. Then if the country gets any loan on a bilateral basis or from IMF, if necessary, these are all also capital receipt, because these are all to be paid. These are liabilities, but it is a capital receipt. Similarly, on capital account there are also outflow of foreign exchange. Say repayment of the loan. When ECB is repaid, it will appear as payment, an outgo of foreign currency. This is also another important area. No country can go for overseas investments. As you know, Indian companies are one of the major investors in Europe, in USA. And when they are investing money, that appears as investments in their books as in assets. But in the country's balance sheet, it appears as payments, that is assets. So on one side, you are getting capital receipts, and in the other side, you are getting capital payments. I again explain you what are the receipts, that is ECB, foreign direct investments, foreign institutional investors, that is FII, and multilateral loan taken by the country. These are the major inflow of foreign currency into the country. An outflow could be foreign loan to business institutions, foreign overseas investments, like that. In an emerging economy, you will find inflow is always more than outflow, and that is the capital account surplus. Today, our country current account surplus or does not have a current account surplus, or country has a current account deficit. How they meet the deficit? They basically use the capital account surplus. And when the capital account surplus is used, then obviously your foreign exchange reserve will keep on reducing. Take the case of our country. We had $642 billion foreign exchange reserve about few months back, pre-Ukraine war, and today is 545. Why? Because of CAD, that is current account deficit. But still we are positive because we have a solid foreign exchange reserve of 545 billion, but mostly on account of capital receipts. And our foreign exchange reserve is equivalent to 9 months import commitments, which is considered to be reasonable. But if you see the countries like Sri Lanka and other countries, they also have a similar problem. Most of them have a current account deficit. Why? As I have already explained in the first part, because of trade deficit. Why trade deficit? Because of oil and inflation arising out of Ukraine-Russia war. It is not that import has increased substantially, no. The prices of the imported materials have gone up, sometimes in certain cases more than 50%. So as a result, the emerging economy or economies have a current account problem, but that has to be made from the capital account surplus, or if you have a foreign exchange reserve, you have to utilize that. The question could be, if you do not have capital account surplus, and at the same time you have a current account deficit, what will you do? You will be considered as default country because you are unable to meet the international commitment. What is international commitment? That is remittance on account of imports. You have imported materials, but you are unable to pay, not because you do not have money, because you do not have sufficient foreign exchange. So obviously, nobody will be interested to sell any product to your country. So you will have deficit of all essentials in your country, as you have seen in the case of Sri Lanka. So friends, while it may not be possible to keep the current account surplus all the times, but you should always try to have sufficient capital surplus in your capital account. And that India did very nicely, and that is why our foreign exchange reserve touched to all-time high $642 billion. And that is why we are still surviving. Not only surviving, we are surviving with comfort. But it is a matter to reckon, it is a matter to note that foreign exchange reserve is very, very important to continue with your international transactions. And a country cannot isolate from the world or depend on its own manufacture, own goods. It is not possible. So you have to import, you have to export, and you have to follow the Ricardian theory of competitive advantage. That is there. So therefore, we thought this capital account subject will be very, very helpful to all of you, particularly the students, the UPSC aspirants, corporate professionals, advocates, professors, etc. in a totally lucid manner so that you understand. So with this, we have covered foreign exchange reserve in series 1 discussions. In the series 2, we discussed current account, we discussed capital account, and we also discussed what happens if you have a deficit in current account and also you do not have sufficient foreign exchange reserve or sufficient credit balance in your capital account. What happens? What will be its impact to the economy? What will be its impact to the people like us? That has been discussed in detail for your total understanding.